Thanks for joining us at Finovate Europe. My name is David Penn, Research Analyst with the Finovate Group. Joining me here this afternoon is Gordon with Ondot Systems. We're going to talk just a little bit about the work he does for them, the company, and some of the things he's been talking about here at Finovate Europe. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, David. Thank you.
First, let's just talk a little bit by way of introduction about yourself and the work that you do at Ondot.
Okay, well, look at me. I'm a baby boomer, which is well past his booming date. So I had a career in fintech from IBM to Microsoft and latterly with Ondot over the last 6 months or so. So Ondot is a fintech which is quite widely spread in terms of market coverage. We serve 4,000 financial institutions around the globe. I look after the EMEA business here, so out of London, the UK is my team here. And what we do is provide a set of digital tools that augments the payment journey for the consumer of the bank, and that's very relevant and very pertinent today.
Certainly, certainly. Now you mentioned the EMEA region. If I remember correctly, there has been some news relatively recently in terms of a digital platform that I think was in December that you announced, particularly for the UK and the European markets.
Yes, well, it's actually a global initiative, and we came upon, and we didn't make this term up, but we realized that there's a sort of branding going around many industries called the digital twin. And it appeared, I think, in the Internet of Things area, there's a data protection company that talks about a data self that looks after your identity on the internet. And we realized that what we were doing is a set of tools that really coalesce around a digital twin or a digital angel that looks after your spending journeys.
Interesting.
And so that kind of resonates just more with the consumer around what we actually do rather than talking about real-time interception of authorization streams and message capabilities and geographic triangulation. But effectively, from a technical point of view, technology point of view, we capture the authorization stream of any payment. We also capture the user's location in a physical GPS calibrated location like a mapping app would do. And we also capture the context of that payment, or the merchant's true identity, the context around where they are in the particular spending world, perhaps where they are in their spending on a month-to-month kind of basis. So you've got that much richer information around that context. Then you can interact with the user in real time, help them make decisions about, is this spending appropriate? Is it wise? Is it within your budgetary limits today? Is it actually where you physically are? So the card and the device and the consumer may be in separate places, which is a risk indication. But effectively, if you think about it as a digital twin and there's a guardian angel around your spending, and it breaks into three different capabilities. One is a digital valley for your cards. I mean, the card is a digital process, but it's not really a very digital experience, if I can put it that way. So the ability to digitize any spending card you might have, debit, credit, charge card, populate it onto your phone, your wallet instantly, replace it instantly, give shared access to that card to a family member or an employee. There's lots of private banks we work with whose principals just give their credit card to their driver, their shopper, their accountant. Go spend. You see stories of fraud, and so having all of that digitized and controlled and locked down is very important. So the second piece is what I call the guardian. And the guardian angel helps you spend safely and securely. So you think about, I use contactless, what we all do in TfL in London here on the Tube network. It's priced by a maximum cap per day. The pricing structure means that they automatically cap your spend. And they also price it by zones depending where you travel. So my card has got no sense of cap, presence, but my app can tell my card, you're only allowed to work in zone 2, you're only allowed to spend £8.50 maximum per day, and you're only allowed to be used on Monday to Fridays. So I can lock down the ability of that card to be used to very precisely the purpose that I want to do it. And that applies to my children, my wife, my employees. My mother-in-law's getting a bit demented and she goes and does stupid things inadvertently. It's a way to control that. So the spend guardian is all around wrapping around your spending. It means I'm prompting you in the moment to say, are you really sure about this? This is going to have some other consequences, or how can we help you pay for this purchase? Did you know there's maybe something cheaper elsewhere? So giving that much richer in the moment experience. And the third piece is more about data enrichment, and we capture a lot more information around that spend process, the transaction, so we can use that to help populate statements, in the usual format, whether it's print or online. We also help that to create an instant record and track of your spend, not just a very tightly compressed MCC merchant code with some hieroglyphics, but an image of the shop, a facsimile of the receipt, a picture of the time and date, the product, etc. And you could use that just to make sure you're actually getting sight of what you're spending and what your dependents and employees are spending. But also it can be used to populate, for example, a corporate expenses app. I worked for Microsoft for many years, and Microsoft's great at command and control with lots of its processes, and employee expense was no exception. But the tooling they had to automate that was very primitive. It's based on my whim to decide when I'd report my expenses. Maybe 3 months later, might be early, I don't know. It depends on how I interpret the spending rules, which is the number of times that a receipt for breakfast was claimed when the breakfast happened, usually about 2 o'clock in the morning. It's quite, so of course you could claim for breakfast, but not for so all these little tricks. So you could digitize all of that, so your financial controller is getting sight of where the actual spend is happening in real time, and the employees get the productivity benefit of, well, your expenses are automatically just posted through in the moment. So, breaking it down, the digital twin is about having a valet, a guardian, and an analyst helping you frictionlessly get your cards and use them, spend safely and wisely, and understand more about what you're doing with your money. And it's funny that of all the oldest digital processes in banking, payment is probably the most digital as a process, but it's the least digital in terms of consumer experience. And that's really the value that Ondot brings to the industry. So, as I said, we've got 4,000 FIs around the world. 2 of the largest banks in the world are our customers. We're proudly working with them. And most of the 8 of the top 10 processors have our engine inside their switches, so it's ready to run, ready to go. So yeah, very timely, and getting lots of good feedback from the audience here.
Wow, very, very interesting. I know that my first awareness of Ondot came through the card controls technology.
That's our foundation.
Seeing them at some of the shows a few years back, winning Finovate Middle East Best of Show last year this time, as a matter of fact, for again with that demonstration. And I know for me it was one of the first times really seeing that kind of technology and hearing you describe sort of like iterations of it and how it's advanced even beyond that in its applications. Really, really fascinating.
I think you're absolutely right. The controls world began in the US. It's now kind of starting to hit the UK and Europe, but I like to think of us as being another generation ahead of that. We're about the experience, and it's a bit like, in a sense, when you bought your first PC, you may have purchased an antivirus program from McAfee or something like that. But when you get your first payment instrument, nobody thinks about, well, maybe I need some protection around this. And it's kind of funny how contactless and cash is now becoming a minority payment. But this powerful payment vehicle is very, very powerful in the right hands and in the wrong hands. So it's appropriate to have some control and management around it, and digitize it as well. So I think it's going to become table stakes, so controls will be table stakes in the future. But these augmented experiences, bringing retail offers in the moment help and assistance, no matter where you are in the world or what you're doing, bringing it in the moment at the time and place is key for what we do.
Yeah, it definitely makes a lot of sense that in a number of different ways, thinking about that moment, whether it's providing a recommendation. And I was reading something that was talking about dieting, and they were saying that for people who are having a hard time with impulse control, if you could get them to just stop for 10 seconds, just before they made that decision, that's all the leverage that they would need to remind themselves, all right, I'm on a diet, I'm trying to do these sorts of things.
I think the diet app and the app economy is a good analogy for what we do. And in a sense, I have apps for my fitness life. I have an app for my wine drinking life as well. They probably don't talk to each other.
Glaring at each other across.
But when you get into the open banking world, say, okay, all of these digital versions of my diet life, my fitness life, my financial life, they're all very disconnected at the moment. But I think if we can find a way to integrate them and let them to share in places. So if I'm in the gym, and my bank says to me, hey, you worked out well today, do another 1,000 calories this week and we'll give you a reward. So bringing incentivization into it. If I'm in Tesco's and my wine app says, well, Tesco's say, hey, we noticed through our open banking API, you tend to shop in Majestic for wine. Here's a retailer offer for us because we want you to be a customer of Tesco Bank. as a retail bank. So
Yeah.
I think there's lots of white space around, as you say, bringing those retail and spending experiences and lifestyle experiences together.
Right.
So we don't just have all these individually siloed apps, but we have some degree of digital self that looks after our well-being financially and holistically as well. So yeah, I think that's the direction that the consumer is expecting to
Absolutely.
be taken. Yeah.
It's like you said, the same thing with the payments. It's like we live a certain sort of life, and our life is extremely integrated, extremely holistic. We go from here to there,
Yeah.
we stop
Yeah.
here on the way to there.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
need our technology to be there as well.
Absolutely, and I think the payment is kind of laggard in that digital experience, which is kind of strange because it's the fundamental digital framework that
It's a
we
great
started
point.
off. You know, it's been stealthily just becoming pervasive
Right.
without being enriched.
Do you think, just by the way of finishing up maybe, is in terms of, I'm thinking about that transition, because I find that a fascinating thing that I feel like we can sort of see it, and it's like, okay, how do we cross that terrain to get there? Do you think it's going to be, and maybe it's purely speculative, just a very slow march towards closer, or do you think it requires a certain type of technology or a certain sort of connectivity or something like that that's going to really sort of open the floodgates for people to really start demanding that this integration start to happen?
I don't know, it's a good point, because I think when we democratize data or information, it becomes pervasive. And it's now my choice to decide who I will share that with and who's going to have access to it. It kind of disintermediates the providers of the services like banking, fitness, spend, or retail. And it may end up being, you know, I may think my greatest loyalty, apart from my family, is to my football club.
Sure.
And my football club might provide me with an app that revolves around a pivotal thing that's really important to me, and they aggregate my trust to federate that base. So we'll look after your energy spending, we'll look after your shopping, we'll look after your fitness. So I think the Internet of Things, the digital twins, the Internet of smart agents and AI, it's a fascinating thing. So I don't know if it's going to, I can't say if it's going to be a technology thing.
Right.
I think it's more about a consumer trust thing. And that could be a third party like an Experian identity provider, maybe the most trusted entity, say, well, we'll be your guardian of your data self, and we'll help you choose the banks to do the other service. But it might be a bank that could do it.
Sure.
So it's different by segment, I think.
I just want to thank you again for sitting down and talking with us. Fascinating conversation about a lot of the topics that a lot of us are really, really interested about.
Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for joining us.